What's up, everybody? Welcome to Sleep Atomic, and we're reviewing The Mandalorian, Chapter 7 The Reckoning. This episode, we get a mini, heist thing going. It's not up there with, Ocean's 11 or whatever, but maybe if Ocean's 11 was, with the cast of Die Hard or something. Mando goes to find Cara Dune, Kuiil, and then meets up with Greef Karga, and there's only like a moment part where there's a backstabbing, but it's like a obvious like, okay, well, you didn't do this for me, so Greef Karga has a change of heart after being healed by our little green guy and turns his blaster onto the bounty hunters he brought with him, and then starts to plan a deception with Cara Dune, Kuiil, and our Mandalorian. When originally he was just gonna bring the target or a little green baby back to the client. It's pretty much the single idea of the heist. Concept wise, it like pulls itself through, and then there's even like a cliffhanger to a second episode. Our first cliffhanger of the whole series. It's pretty genius because it's like just the one concept, and Greef Karga hits him up at the end of the last episode and towards the beginning of this one with an offer he can't refuse, and then it forces the Mandalorian to do all those calling in their favors thing to get help, but this time it's like, oh, you don't owe me. It's like, I know you're gonna help. Like, here, come on, here's my case. Like, blah blah blah. As he explains everything to Cara Dune in her little own bubble, because she's like bare knuckle boxing some dude, and there's like this little like electrical tether that's on them. That's kind of like a kind of looks like they're showing off that they have that. She's doing the Star Wars equivalent of that stabbing the knife on the ground, like pressing your heel against the blade, and then like fist fighting. Except they like are tied to each other, and there's only like so much room they could back up, so there's only forward to go mostly, and they like yank each other around, grabbing the electricity, which was I was interested in seeing. There's a lot of these moments where it's like, oh wow, that's like pretty intense to pull off. Like after that, it kind of like quiets down for like intricacies of scenes to put together. We get our usual like cockpit thing with the Razor Crest, but there's these like other moments in there like sprinkled around. And it's like, oh wow, that's I see why they like staved off on story for like presentation. When they go to get Kuiil to uh come help, there's this intense moment of uh like health and rehabilitation, maybe I guess repair, because it's this little montage of like Kuiil like finding IG-11 in that little fortress, and then repairing them, claiming them, and then teaching them everything from the ground up. And he's like describing what a droid's life is like, because he's like, oh, I can't just program certain things into him. and eventually he like learned his own personality as well from his like trials and troubles and from learning and doing things. It's seemingly random, like knowing how most of audiences and certain people would react to it, but it's like the most grounded thing ever. But I guess it's kind of like a little impersonal because it's like about a droid, and but some people nowadays like empathize with the droids or like the robots of the story. I don't know why. Maybe I'll get into it some other day. But my quick guess is probably because of uh, impersonal things anyway. And that's why this almost non personality uh, vibes with like certain people in the audience. The way you would like empathize with like a description of a inanimate object because like certain things around you are so personal all the time or have no personality. There's a few routes that could go. But, I could see it as like a crew heavy day for this shooting of the episode. Like it's like, oh yeah, like the directors and the writers are over there doing the rituals for more creative output. So we do this right here. Like I'm sure they could like shove shove that in there somewhere. We all showed up, but they still weren't ready. Sticking to what they know, and they're just like doing those little effects. It's like I was wondering where the spark people went. Like, there's this moment later, like in the tavern or whatever it is they meet up at. It was like one of those like incredible zoom ins to like certain things getting like destroyed in the area of the setting they were in. The window busts out and like things hanging get shot, things were falling over, people get shot, they're falling over. It's like the one real nugget of story when Moff Gideon's mentioned and he takes the one uh regal looking subordinate, the mysterious client Greef Karga's been mentioning and is involved with the Imperial people. Apparently, he's been taking orders from Moff Gideon from the Empire. It's taken the hollow call on the little hollow briefcase. But, like, instead of, like, things, cups shattering or, like, plates breaking, it was, like, these sparks, like, igniting everywhere. And, it was the very, quick introduction for, Moff Gideon because he was, like, making his little subordinate disposable and then it kind of doesn't make it anyway. So it's supposed to be like a you were careless. There's nothing in that bassinet thing, and that was supposed to be like the slap on the back of the hand, but it just like he was just like in the wrong spot. Looks like because like they must like scan the whole area because he knew there was nothing in there. As we get to see like all these stormtroopers roll up on him and like more of how the TIE fighters work because it like folds like the little folds in like the little H shape of the TIE fighter. The wings like fold together. It starts making like a little X, and then the little spear at the cockpit is still like there, and it's like just like regular wings as like it touches the ground. It's like I never wondered about that because they're always like hanging from the ceiling or from wherever it is. it's at, like in the Star Destroyer or whatever. But that was kind of cool, and it just like is flanked by all these like clean stormtroopers instead of like the kind of like red musty ones that are like supposed to be white and couldn't get the dust off of them. And Moff Gideon's like little chess piece was like it kind of was like in the stormtrooper realm of stuff, but it was like obviously like better and different instead of just like being completely different with the Sith or whoever it is that's like usually with them. I can tell that they really like their stormtrooper toys. Like whoever put this together, they may have done what I did and not even known what it was for the longest time, and just made like a little army because you knew they were like a little army and like they were sold in like little sets, so there was like multiple ones. So you like dreamed up this little scenario for your like troop of toys. I couldn't do that very often, but I could do that with these toys. I wasn't like a kid that would be like pew, pew, pew. I kind of have to like what I would want them to have like a real projectile instead of like making the noises and like imagining it really hard. But that time with these stormtroopers, I'm sure anyone could do really. I'm sure some people even still thought they like shot bullets, but it was pretty cool. I mean, as like an adult that's not so obsessed with the lightsabers and everything. Then, as for other cool moments, there was a moment where it was like mostly dark. You could really see each of the characters like outline and like their details from the fire, and there's just like this backdrop of darkness that's all around them, and these like airborne this the wildlife came out and like attacked them and gave us this moment with little baby Yoda guy healing Greef Karga after the flying wildlife of the desert uh, swooped in on them. It's like very odd terrain, dude. It's like lava, molting, not molting lava, but like curing lava and to desert instead of like desert to the roughest like green outdoors stuff ever. Meaning like nothing you would really want to trek through. But it like starts the other way and it's like mm, curing gray silver lava with bits of like red everywhere. And then it affords like these giant flying creatures like trying to like pick everything up to eat. I just wonder like Greef Karga's like thought process and he's like, whoa, we could just do that? Like I was more focused on the friggin' stormtrooper thing. Like if they were doing that little exercise of like fully immersing themselves and just like, oh, what would your reaction be if this happened? And he full on does it, and then like the whole scenario plays out. I just wonder about that sudden deviation from like trying to capture the little green kid to like, oh, no, 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 the Empire cannot have that. It was just like a wonder of wonders reaction like afterward. That must be at least his impression of seeing something like miraculous and like very special like play out right in front of him, and he like just turns and takes it to the directors or something. They're like killing time or something, and then they get kind of like some story on the storyboard. I mean, at least with Star Wars, you know, it's kind of like, well, there's some gotta be some imagination times, like duh, like We can't just like fancy like play around in these costumes and play something out instead of like sit in a room and write it down. I know it's kind of a weird way to like play, but it's a way. It's one of the least frequent one, but the one that has more preparation involved. But once it's all done, it's like pretty pretty nice. And then you have at least like a little video you can have. But role playing aside, it kind of looks like the main uh, star of the episode were the stormtroopers. Were because the spotlight seems to move easily between whatever it is that's appearing in the episode, even though they seem like faceless and like unrecognizable. They're pretty recognizable. And the ones we get to talk to like have a sort of a personality. Like the ones like asking to or offering 20 credits for the Mandalorian's helmet. It just reminds me of like people guarding the gate and like they're like listening to the football game or something like that on the radio, or just any security people. And they're like some people like roll by with food and like give them something that they bought, but it wasn't specifically for them. Personally, those moments are pretty funny. For people to like have the I'll say like uh certain guarded personalities or like kind of like business facades up, they like have it down pretty quick on accident when they get like hungry and stuff. It's supposed to be like all business, but it's like, hey, what's that? Like, I'm getting hungry. Like, they're trying to not be hungry, so curiosity like kind of pops out. All right, man. All right. Give me your chain code. They're like real about that chain code for some reason. It doesn't look like you could be there unless you have a chain code. But it's like the new flashy thing that they have. It's like, oh, like they introduced the new safety manual. Like, here's this chain code. If you have ever seen those people kind of like nerdy for their job, Armando does that too earlier. It's like, heck yeah, I get to use one of my protocols. All right, Kuiil, you take the kid and go back to the Razor Crest. And once you get there, start the ground security protocol. Nothing on this planet is gonna get into there after it starts. Just like mentally smirking to himself. Maybe for real smirking. Because he's like, oh yeah, I was ready for this. Just like the nerdiest people about the job. It's my day to shine. Privately, of course. I know we jumped around a lot, but apparently, like, everyone was prepared. Like, if we're going back to the story, because then there's the intense, like, countdown to see if Kuiil makes it to the Razor Crest, and then Mando's like intense, like, hey, like, are you there or not? And again, like, his like perfect, like, it kind of seems like radio voice, like, but it's like a CV radio or whatever you call it, is pretty intense. Like, it conveys like all the emotion and intensity, and it's just like always like that, and it's like coming out of his helmet. And then we get all those like almost exaggerated looks from Cara Dune, like especially when they're like pinned down in the little bar or tavern. It kind of looks like she's like Zoolandering, like off to the side. He's like doing all those like expressions, but they seem appropriate for the moment, even if it's just like me projecting things to her face and it might not even be lining up correctly. Well, Moff Gideon's like, we could do this the hard way or the easy way. But either way, I win. Like, but it's like elongated and like splayed out. He's like running down the situation for them. It's very factual and does not seem to flex any of his like obvious like advantages. And before you know it, the episode's over, and this is like one of the first times I'm like, oh come on, like, what? Can you keep going with it? I mean, I guess the next episode is the last episode for this season, and it's called Chapter 8, Redemption. So I suppose that's pretty good timing for the feels for wanting more. And that's all I had for you for this episode. So we'll get to see how they tap everything out and make their way out, I assume. And I'm sure it'll be something to see, seeing how it's like 3 versus an undetermined amount of people. So I hope you listen in for the 8th episode of The Mandalorian. This was Sleep Atomic, and I'm Alistair. And if no one's told you yet, you look good. And it shows.